The Arctic is not open territory. Sovereignty matters. Treaties matter. Legal frameworks govern access, not tweets or announcements. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Its self-rule arrangements are codified. External powers cannot bypass them. Any attempt to exert influence must follow law, process, and precedent. Diplomatic maneuvering alone carries no legal weight. Agreements between neighboring states set the baseline for governance. Institutional checks enforce boundaries. This is not a matter of opinion. It is a matter of law. Procedural authority exists to prevent unilateral action. Administrative layers, environmental obligations, and security protocols combine to create a systemic framework. When these systems are bypassed, the risk is not political embarrassment, it is legal overreach. Constitutional and institutional limits exist to protect sovereignty. These limits are tested whenever foreign powers attempt to assert influence without procedural compliance. The recent Canada-Denmark alignment highlights exactly this reality. Authority flows through treaties, not declarations. Regulatory frameworks remain binding. Defense and resource approvals follow codified steps. Discretion narrows in the face of law. Every action is checked against precedent. External proposals are routed through established channels. Delay, review, and consent are not obstacles. They are the mechanisms of control. Treaty authority activated. Binding instruments moved from precedent to control. Existing agreements were triggered, not debated. Authority rested in documents, not statements. Procedural compliance became the first unavoidable threshold. Treaty authority activated. Binding instruments moved from precedent to control. Existing agreements were triggered, not debated. Jurisdiction followed ratified text, not political signals. Authority flowed through signatures already on record. Compliance mechanisms engaged automatically. Consultation clauses activated. Environmental review obligations attached. Defense coordination terms aligned. Administrative agencies deferred to treaty language. Discretion narrowed, timelines hardened, external proposals faced procedural barriers, access required consent, filings, review, no fast track existed, every step routed through established channels. Arbitration history mattered, prior settlements carried weight, customary practice reinforced interpretation, institutional memory governed response, legal certainty displaced negotiation space, diplomatic flexibility contracted, operational control shifted to desks, not podiums. The process advanced without announcement. Decisions accrued through paperwork, approvals, and cross-referenced obligations. Authority rested in documents, not statements. Sovereignty reaffirmed. Territorial competence was restated through action. Self-rule statutes remained intact. Delegated powers were respected. Local consent requirements applied. Sovereign control was exercised procedurally. Defense and resource matters followed domestic law. External interest did not alter jurisdiction. Recognition flowed from continuity, not novelty. Governance remained layered. National authority framed regional autonomy. Indigenous consultation thresholds held. Regulatory supremacy stayed local. Sovereign choice manifested in coordination, not isolation. Alignment with a trusted partner reinforced control. No transfer occurred. No exception was carved. The sovereign framework absorbed pressure. Legal personality remained unchanged. International partners adjusted accordingly. Diplomatic channels recognized settled authority. Compliance expectations recalibrated. Strategic options narrowed to lawful engagement. Influence required acceptance of sovereign terms. The system functioned as designed. Arctic jurisdiction locked. Control was fixed through legal perimeter, not force. Maritime boundaries remained governed by settled coordinates. Continental shelf claims followed prior submissions. UNCLOS processes continued without deviation. Regulatory competence stayed anchored to existing filings. Permitting authority remained centralized. Environmental safeguards attached by default. Navigation rights were clarified, not expanded. Defense access required host approval. Scientific activity required notification. Commercial entry required licensing. No informal access existed. Every pathway ran through codified review. Jurisdiction hardened through repetition. Past enforcement actions informed present limits. Precedent narrowed discretion. Administrative silence carried legal meaning. The absence of invitation mattered. Procedural delay functioned as control. Jurisdiction became operational through routine denial. No emergency powers were invoked. No extraordinary carve-outs appeared. Stability was maintained by closure, not escalation. Legal boundaries performed their function quietly. Institutional alignment secured. Agencies moved in sequence, not in conflict. Defense, environment, transport, and foreign affairs synchronized positions. Intergovernmental coordination replaced bilateral improvisation. Shared data frameworks were applied. Joint statements reflected internal clearance. Policy coherence reduced external leverage. Institutional trust shortened response time. Compliance standards matched across systems. Oversight bodies reinforced shared assumptions. Advisory councils echoed the same limits. Multilateral habits guided bilateral action. Dispute avoidance took priority. Risk management frameworks aligned. Strategic messaging followed internal consensus. No agency defected. No parallel channel emerged. Alignment converted preference into practice. Predictability increased. Negotiation space narrowed. External actors encountered a single gate. Institutional unity functioned as deterrence. Authority appeared distributed, but acted as one. The system absorbed pressure without fracture. Bilateral control consolidated. Authority narrowed through coordinated governance. Two states operated within recognized competence. Decision space compressed by alignment. Shared oversight replaced parallel discretion. Regulatory timelines synchronized. Security coordination followed existing accords. Resource frameworks reflected mutual consent. Information sharing reduced ambiguity. Diplomatic signals matched administrative action. No divergence appeared between ministries. Joint stewardship shaped outcomes. Third-party entry faced unified screening. Investment review thresholds aligned. Environmental baselines matched. Defense posture remained consistent. Control was exercised indirectly through routine approvals and refusals. Power manifested through predictability. Legal continuity discouraged speculative engagement. Bilateralism functioned as stability, not exclusion. Control resided in process, not proclamation. Each action reinforced the last. Institutional repetition produced authority. Access depended on compliance, not influence. Consolidation occurred without escalation. The framework held. Procedural access denied. Entry failed at the first gate. Filings lacked jurisdictional footing. Requests triggered review, not acceptance. Silence functioned as response. Deadlines extended without approval. Documentation requirements multiplied. Compliance thresholds remained unmet. No waiver authority was exercised. Informal channels closed. Diplomatic overtures met administrative process. Legal sufficiency governed outcomes. Absence of standing blocked progression. Review bodies deferred upward, then halted. Environmental prerequisites stalled momentum. Security clearances remained pending. Procedural denial avoided confrontation. Law absorbed pressure. Access was neither rejected nor granted. It expired. Process replaced discretion. Delay equaled decision. The system operated as designed. Governance channel closed. Communication lines followed formal routing, not informal influence. Requests reached responsible offices, then encountered procedural screens. Authority flowed through institutional chains. Each stage required verification, clearance, and record. No bypass existed. Administrative hierarchies controlled access. Local offices deferred to central oversight. Policy interpretation rested with designated entities. Consultation thresholds remained enforced. Indigenous input, environmental compliance, and security review converged before any approval. Third-party lobbying could not shortcut legal steps. Information requests were acknowledged, not acted upon. Operational discretion narrowed. Decision points multiplied along the chain. Each layer reinforced the prior one. External actors faced a single coherent procedural structure. Delays were structural, not accidental. Channels functioned as intended. Access required adherence, not persuasion. Institutional integrity dictated outcomes. Governance became a filter, not a gateway. Procedural closure absorbed pressure. Authority remained concentrated. The process itself performed control. Legal compliance equaled influence. No ad hoc exceptions appeared. Negotiation space contracted within codified steps. The system absorbed urgency without fracture. Accountability rested with offices, not individuals. Communication itself enforced the framework. Predictable sequence replaced improvisation. Rules, not power plays, determined results. Every engagement reinforced boundaries. Governance lines acted as both guide and barrier. Influence required methodical alignment. No shortcut could bypass scrutiny. Administrative constancy ensured continuity. Sovereign procedures prevailed. The channel's closure was procedural, systemic, unavoidable. Patterns of coordination replicated across departments. Authority became a function of repetition. External uncertainty was absorbed into internal certainty. Process replaced spontaneity. Compliance replaced coercion. Regulatory gatekeeping enforced. Permissions required strict adherence. Licensing, approvals, and permits followed codified standards. Thresholds were non-negotiable. Environmental, security, and resource frameworks functioned as mandatory checkpoints. Every submission underwent layered scrutiny. Agencies cross-checked references, past rulings, and precedent. Non-compliance halted progression. Gatekeeping operated automatically. Legal thresholds carried operational effect. Monitoring and verification occurred at multiple stages. Standards applied equally, without exception. Enforcement relied on routine procedures. Authority was exercised through documentation, not confrontation. Reviews were sequential, each step building upon the last. Access required full alignment with regulatory expectations. Procedural rigor replaced discretionary judgment. Audits and reporting verified compliance. Gatekeepers coordinated across ministries. External pressure could not bypass codified criteria. Enforcement occurred silently, without announcement. Decisions emerged from process, not politics. Rejections were procedural, not political. Permissions depended on law, not influence. Gatekeeping compressed leverage. External actors encountered predictable thresholds. Administrative certainty substituted for negotiation. Legal structure imposed natural limits. Every application met identical scrutiny. Compliance became a functional barrier. Gatekeeping converted guidelines into operational control. Regulatory discipline ensured continuity. Processes maintained sovereignty. Authority was procedural, cumulative, and inescapable. Strategic leverage neutralized. Options for influence contracted sharply. External actors could not act unilaterally. Power projection required procedural alignment. Diplomatic initiatives met pre-established thresholds. Military presence did not bypass legal frameworks. Resource access demanded host consent. Financial incentives required institutional approval. Negotiation space narrowed to recognize pathways. Past agreements constrained flexibility. Legal obligations limited improvisation. Each move was checked against precedent. Coordination among competent authorities further restricted unilateral action. Intelligence or surveillance initiatives required consent, filtering potential advantage. Pressure tactics lost effect within structured procedures. Multilateral alignment reinforced resistance to ad hoc influence. Attempts to assert advantage outside these channels met procedural denial. Authority rested in law, not rhetoric. Administrative rigor absorbed leverage. Strategic options had to operate within codified frameworks. External actors faced a single unified procedural front. Policy discretion was bound. Consent thresholds remained high. Leverage converted into compliance steps. Power was procedural, not declarative. Influence depended on predictable alignment. Structural cohesion diminished unilateral maneuverability. The system translated ambition into process. Strategic pressure translated into legal review. Routes for advantage were visible, constrained, enforceable. Operational space shrank. Predictability replaced improvisation. Channels filtered every initiative. Authority was systemic, not individual. Negotiation required institutional patience. Attempts at shortcut leverage met nullification. Legal and administrative continuity prevailed. Options contracted, not disappeared. Process replaced force. Leverage became functionally inert. Sovereignty retained control without confrontation. Rules-based order prevails. Governance followed codified standards. Authority emerged from law, not declaration. Precedent guided every step. Institutional alignment enforced consistency. Regulatory frameworks applied uniformly. Procedural adherence replaced discretionary influence. Decision-making flowed through established channels. Sovereign rights remained intact. Treaty obligations dictated engagement. Compliance thresholds ensured accountability. External initiatives operated only within recognized limits. Processes absorbed tension without disruption. Legal norms constrained improvisation. Administrative systems replicated enforcement silently. Multilateral recognition reinforced authority. Deviations faced correction. Monitoring and reporting tracked compliance. Access depended on procedural fulfillment. Policies followed institutional continuity. International law underpinned every action. Coordination among stakeholders minimized uncertainty. Governance functioned predictably. Regulatory consistency reinforced territorial control. Procedures translated authority into operational reality. Legal boundaries became practical barriers. Strategic actions required process alignment. Influence was earned through adherence. Institutional memory guided response. Risk mitigation occurred automatically. Enforcement operated through verification. Sovereignty exercised through method, not conflict. Predictable procedures limited disruption. Rules became the mechanism of power. Channels of engagement were codified. Compliance dictated outcomes. The system functioned continuously. Decision-making remained structured. Control operated quietly, efficiently, and reliably. Stability was procedural, not declarative. Authority rested on law, not personality. Institutions delivered continuity. The recent Arctic developments expose clear legal and systemic constraints. External powers cannot bypass sovereign authority. Procedural and institutional checks function as designed. Attempts to exert influence without following treaty and regulatory frameworks fail. Governance channels, environmental safeguards, and defense coordination act as cumulative barriers. Coordination between Canada and Denmark highlights how aligned institutions consolidate control. Discretion for unilateral action is effectively neutralized. The lesson is structural, not political. Legal frameworks prevail over improvisation. Observers, including experts like Jeffrey Sachs, note that long-term influence requires compliance, not rhetoric. If powers continue to ignore procedural rules, they risk repeated marginalization. The Arctic will reward patient, lawful engagement and punish impulsive strategy. Strategic leverage cannot override codified authority. Procedural rigor dictates outcomes. For viewers tracking global governance, this is a reminder: law and institutions shape power more than personality or announcements. Stay informed, follow the rules, and watch the patterns unfold. This has been a professional analysis report. Subscribe for timely updates, expert insight, and precise, legally grounded coverage of global events.